Welcome to Radio Amenti, embracing the eternal now where minds and timelines merge, inspiring synchronicity, awakening potential, and making sense of change. If you're a fan of nostalgia, I'm sure you've probably seen, or I'd recommend you seeing, the classic film Legend starring Tom Cruise, Mia Sara, and Tim Curry as the Devil, or otherwise known as Darkness. This film is something that has been very cherished on my path since childhood. But into adulthood, I wouldn't realize that the meta-narrative of the story would actually be something that could help me contextualize gnosis and walking the path to understanding oneself. The ending scene of Legend, Tom Cruise's character, quote-unquote, defeats darkness, and Tim Curry offers some parting words which really reverberate true in a way that's quite profound and very synchronous to the solo cast episode that I am recording here and now. So as Tim Curry is defeated, his parting words are,
"What is light without dark? What are you without me?" I am a part of you all. You can never defeat me. We are brothers, eternal.
"What is light without dark? What are you without me? I am a part of you all, and you can never defeat me. We are brothers eternal." And then, as he's defeated, darkness falls back into the universe and seems to become a star. What a meta narrative. Why I say this and why I'm opening up this solo cast with this is because I want to talk about darkness. I want to talk about shadow work. I want to talk about the things that people may be afraid to talk about, especially thought leaders within the consciousness space. It's so easy to get caught up in love and light and raising your vibration and tuning your frequency to attract abundance, as Abraham Hicks says. Vibrating into a better mood is something that is interesting to consider, because we are essentially particles playing pretend. And if we can adjust our consciousness to higher levels, thus in turn, a reality adjusts to that higher level. So when they talk about vibrating to a higher level of consciousness and being in that light-hearted space, it's something that we should all strive towards. But in order to get there, we can't ignore darkness. We can't ignore the shadow. We can't ignore the denser aspects of our reality, because the more they're ignored, the more they're suppressed. And until you take your quote unquote demons for tea, as the beautiful Yumi Sakugawa, author and illustrator of the Illustrated Guide to Becoming One of the Universe, spoke of in her book, demons need love too. So what can I tell you about demons? How should I even begin talking about demons? Well, if angels are pure beings of light, then I'd imagine the demons are the shadow, beings that are the opposite of light. If light is love and darkness is fear, what are demons but denser realities of fear? In Tibetan Buddhism, there's a concept in mystical practice of the tulpa. A tulpa is the idea of a being or object which can be created through spiritual or mental powers. In Tibetan, it's sprulpa, which can mean emanation or manifestation. So if you think about fear being a vibration, sadness being a vibration, density being a vibration, if you're feeding these vibrations continuously with your thoughts, perhaps they can in turn manifest as a thought form from your formed thoughts. I've thought a lot about demons because growing up with a grandmother that was very much into the occult and witchcraft. I think she took her practice to a dark place. She used to create voodoo dolls. She was very interested in demonology. I think she had her hand in some things that she may not have known what effects these would cause throughout the family tree as the actions fractaled out through the reactions of our familial trauma, I guess you'd say. Demons. I remember the first time I thought I saw a demon was back in 2013. I had fallen asleep watching a documentary about the secrets of the Vatican, and it was a very heavy documentary about the sexual abuse and trauma of survivors of abuse from priests within the Vatican. When I fell asleep, I woke up in sleep paralysis, something that's happened a handful of times to me and is very, very terrifying. And as I woke up from sleep paralysis, I had full cognition, but I couldn't move my body. And I looked on my couch in my living room and I saw a hooded entity who was giving off a horrifying vibration that made me feel so unsafe, scared, worried, and I was so shaken up. When I finally was able to shake out of that paralysis, I was pretty disturbed, to say the least. Back in the summer of 2014, I dabbled a bit in channeling. I have a complicated relationship to it, as I've explained on previous podcasts that I did with Champ Perinya, who was the creator of the Great Awakening map. I received a lot of things that defy explanation. I channeled things in Aramaic. I channeled things in Turkish. I channeled prophecy about what 2019 would be back in 2014. I was told what angels are. I was told what God is. I was told the metaphor to look for within the greatest stories ever told. It was ancient. It was biblical. It was confusing. I closed the chapter on channeling because while some of the advice was quite sound and very non-dual, other bits of it felt misleading. And if angels and demons are disembodied spirits looking for cars to take for a ride and direct and drive into timelines that are suitable for their desires, when you open up a portal to it all can flow through and to you, and you are essentially playing with fire. I'm grateful I had that experience. I'm grateful I can talk about it openly now. For a long time, I hid it because fear of judgment, fear of worry, of perception. I never wanted to bill myself as a channel like Bashar or Abraham Hicks. For me, it was very sacred and very, very confusing. So while I have books of transcriptions and a whole glossary of terms from that time, I've closed the door to it and sealed the portal because I'm not really sure what it all means. And I am more comfortable with not pursuing that path. The last few years have been really a journey. As discussed in episode 0, synchronicity has been a guide on the path. Light and dark, although varying in degrees, have been equally profound teachers. Shadow work has taught me how to be a better human by seeing how not to be. The moments that I have been less than or found myself in spaces of anger, frustration, resentment, and jealousy were but a mirror to the ugly side of the human spectrum of emotion. Just like that movie Inside Out, not one of us are free from the gradients of emotions of being human. We all laugh, we all cry, we all get angry, we all love, we all feel things from a wide variety of emotion. And not one of us is free from anger, but we can be freed from our anger by stepping back and looking at our triggers and seeing what it was that fueled them and how to become a better person moving forward. When I planned to release Radio Amenti, I made a point to have a cache of episodes so that I wouldn't lose momentum in publishing content for y'all. Man plans, God laughs. I love that expression. And it's something that I've heard, I think it was like 5 years ago. And it's something that I resort to when you make a plan and things tend to go a way that is seemingly beyond your control. October was a month of big change, big transition, big purge, big energy, big feelings. October was the end of Whitma. After participating in 5 events and partnering for 3, that chapter came to a close, ultimately because of a difference in vision, and ultimately because I handled my emotions in a way that I am less than proud of. It needed to end. It had to end, but I let my frustration get the best of me and let my emotions rip. And it wasn't cool. It was ending before that, but I had a door I could walk through, which could have been the door with ending it with grace, but instead I chose the buildup of anger and frustration. And it became caustic. But man plans, God laughs. The cosmic joke is that I think of the Sephiro on the Kabbalah tree of life as this thing that we all begin at the beginning, we all end at the ending, and all of the spheres in between are the choose your own adventure game, and no matter what, you always end back at the end or the beginning. I look at that in a way in my brain, like imagine the Sephiro and the tree of life being the board of a pinball machine, and the spheres by which you enter the Sephiro being the pinball. And as you play the game of life, you drop into different energies to come into relationship with them. But ultimately, it's a game. Ultimately, we all exit and enter accordingly. And every thing that we experience is a part of a greater thing, which is understanding its role as being a greater thing that you're a part of. So why am I saying all this? As October was this intense month, a lot of endings of relationship, endings of business, endings of patterns, endings of cycles, endings. I don't even know where November went, first of all, but November 20th, I left for a 15-day vacation to Costa Rica. That was part vacation, part work, as I was teaching at Rhythmia for their first ever LGBTQ week. And I brought my friend Tarika Larson, who is actually on the Whitma Imagination episode of Radio Menti, episode 8. She happened to have time off. I happened to have been able to gift her a trip to Rhythmia. Time aligned. She became my travel partner, and my whole goal was to spend that time in reflection and editing podcasts and starting work on the next Amenti project and just, getting stuff done. Man plans, God laughs. Getting to Costa Rica was super easy. Everything was flowy and good. We arrive in Liberia, and as we are looking for our rental car place, we make a few wrong turns, and lo and behold, we see fucking Mick Jagger at the airport leaving the men's room. And he became kind of our spirit guide for that week. Why? So you'll come to find out. So we affectionately said, well, maybe the theme here is the right way is sometimes the wrong way, or the wrong way is the right way, rather. we see Mick, we go to venture to our rental car place, and I had booked the rental car for Tamarindo on Expedia, and Expedia offered a really great deal. Too good to be true. Always when things are too good to be true, they are. So when we got to the rental car office, basically they wanted some insane amount of money of a security deposit, and it's Costa Rican law that you have to have a really expensive insurance plan, which, considering the rental car they gave me, was almost like a quarter of the price of what I imagined this car was. But I digress. Things worked out, got the car anyway. And as soon as we get to the hotel that we're staying at, we get a flat. What? Man plans, God laughs. So we get a flat tire. Luckily, it's right in front of the hotel. And the car that we had was kind of like a Suzuki Tracker type of thing with a full-on tire on the back. And because of Costa Rican roads, I guess it's a common thing to have this happen. As I am Googling YouTube tutorials on fixing tires, a lovely young man on a bicycle who barely speaks English saw me suffering and struggling and offered to change the tire. So he changes the tire for us. Turns out he works at a surf shop not too far from where we were and offered to teach us salsa lessons in the not creepy way at all. Just a kind, good guy that literally wanted nothing in return and fixed the tire for us for free. Moving right along. The wrong way is the right way, right? So this happens. We're still having a really amazing time together. Tarika's a great travel partner. But the second day I'm there, I wake up in the morning to start doing work as I make my livelihood from my laptop. And I was ready to start editing podcasts. My laptop starts glitching. The LCD screen of the computer wasn't working. And then as soon as I figured out a way to make that work, once I went to the sign-in screen, it would just load and load and load and never get to the home screen. Why? Why? Very strange. I figured that out. And as soon as that was figured out, the speaker of the laptop then broke. My laptop's 2 years old. It's not that abused. It's not that used. Something weird was happening. So I took that as a sign, put the computer down, go inward, chill, which was great because I spent a little less time worrying about the laptop. I spent a lot more time being present. And one of the days that we were there, we decided to go to an animal sanctuary. It was publicized as an animal sanctuary, but truly what we came to find out was that the sanctuary was actually a zoo. And it was a really interesting day of reflection and looking at the shadow. I was really reminded of my friend Corey Allen's quote, "Don't let your sanctuary become your prison." After we left, I wrote a passage about that time, which I'd love to read to you now. On our second day in Tamarindo, my friend and I went on an adventure to an animal sanctuary. I have conflicted feelings about zoos, and as a lifelong animal lover, I don't want to support institutions that imprison sentient beings. But the space was advertised as a sanctuary, so we opted in for the journey. This sanctuary was definitely a PR move, as the toads, frogs, snakes, birds, monkeys, and jungle cats didn't come with backstories with how they were rescued, or, as the zookeeper said, confiscated. At one point, we saw a baby monkey banging on the glass with both of his hands. At one point, we saw a free exotic bird perched on top of the cage of his imprisoned comrades, a poetic moment in its own right. At one point, we saw a jaguar staring at and pawing at the door in his cage for food, I would assume. When we reached the butterfly zone, we had a beautiful exchange with one of the guides who offered us detailed explanation of metamorphosis. Nobody knows what exactly happens in the chrysalis when the caterpillar becomes a butterfly. It completely dissolves into a gelatinous mystery before emerging as a butterfly. Most butterflies will only live for 1 to 2 weeks. Funny to contemplate spending the majority of your life unable to fly, then completely transforming into a winged being for a brief flickering of time before your light goes out. Imagine a snake becoming a bird. The day turned into a meta-story, which allowed for many reflections. I thought often about the notion of sanctuaries being prisons, and the paradox of the prison also being a sanctuary, especially for the beautiful sloths that may perhaps have had a more dangerous life being in the general population. It seems the overarching theme of this trip thus far has been reconciling paradox, and making friends with chaos, looking to find vision from a space of non-duality and infinite possibility. Yesterday, I found a deceased butterfly on the beach, perhaps as a reminder of the ephemeral nature of all things, a totem to drive home the theme presented, a spirit to guide this process of transformation and transmutation. Salve et coagula. Day 2. So, yeah, that was really wild and a really interesting thing to consider and ponder when thinking about lightness and dark, inner and outer, sanctuary and prison. After our time in Tamarindo, we then had to head to Rhythmia for the workshop that I was teaching that week. I was teaching alongside my dear friend, Ben Decker, who was raised Mormon and is a meditation teacher. Frank Elleriti, who I became very close with, who is an Emmy Award-winning journalist and has done a lot on third eye vision and kind of bridging the gap between mainstream and psychic phenomena. And then I had an opportunity to meet Jordan River, who is the founder of Spirit Science, which was a show that I used to watch all the time when I first woke up and was going deep down the rabbit hole. When we arrived to Rhythmia, it was a big shift in energy from chaos and dirt roads to our beautiful sanctuary for healing and inner work. The first day of medicine ceremonies was beautiful, profound, 5D cosmic orgasm, all of the beauty of the DMT experience that you see in the Alex Gray painting. And imagine when you look at visionary art, it set the stage for me for what I thought would be a week of continued beauty. Man plans, God laughs. The second day of ceremony was the most intense thing I've ever experienced in my entire life. I have done ayahuasca over 40 times. I am no adept. I am no shaman. I am a mere student of the medicine, an explorer of time and space, a curious mind who wants to heal more than anything my own trauma and the trauma that has existed from the lifetimes that are within my DNA. I've had journeys where I've felt nothing. I've had journeys where I've felt everything. I've had journeys where I've felt like I've had surgery by aliens and seen realms beyond language. I've had synchronicity with deities like Green Tara, the Buddha, Krishna, something that's brought me back to peace, forgiveness, understanding, and the aha clarity. Tuesday was the most humbling, frightening baptism by fire, if you will. The night started off really mellow. I actually thought that it was going to have a not a night, considering it took a really long time for the medicine to hit. And if you've never done ayahuasca before, the taste of it is not very pleasant. The consistency sometimes can be like a barbecue sauce type of thickness, especially yahe. Yahe is different than ayahuasca. It's more purgative than visionary, but ayahuasca in and of itself is very earthy, yerba mate type of flavoring that once you've tasted it, it gives sense memories for forever. So when I thought I was having a nada vision, I just was going to chalk it up to, okay, I'm going to take the night to sleep. But then it started to kick in. I started to see and feel a transformation happening within my body that I have never felt before. I felt darkness. I felt what imagine a demon is. I felt this demon coursing through my veins. I felt this demon coursing through my system. I felt this demon embodying my body and taking agency over my life. I saw how this demon has manifested in my life for a very long time, that it had been latent in my cells, lingering, looking to come out and be triggered in moments that made me feel small, made me feel insecure, made me lose faith in God, made me lose faith in love. Every time that carelessness came in, the demon took over. This demon, I felt, has been a part of my family line for a very long time. I saw how my grandmother's use of ceremonial magic and interest in Aleister Crowley may have provoked something beyond. I saw the dangers of magic as a form of control, not creation. I saw how spirituality and the notion of thought creating reality could be turned into a form of control in and of itself because it's keeping you stuck in a matrix of things. Not that we don't need things, not that it's bad to want to manifest things, but when the emphasis is on the material and not the creative, dangers can come through. So as I saw this demon emerging and feeling this demon in my system, I kept seeing all these doors of possibility that I could have entered when met with conflict. I saw how in ending Witma, I could have chosen a door of peace and washing my hands with it and allowing karma to clear on its own on a path that's not my own. But then I saw that I chose the door of the demon. I chose the door of anger. I chose the door of fear. I chose the door of hitting below the belt. I chose the door that the demon delighted in. I saw how ugly that was. I felt how ugly that was. I felt like Reagan in The Exorcist, truly, how vile and awful anger is. So as this is all happening, I begin to purge. And as I'm purging, I feel the suffering of this demon. I feel the suffering of this being. I feel how it just doesn't want to let go. But all I wanted to do was to let it go. And in wanting to let it go, I found myself actually asking Jesus to help me. And I've never really called him out like that. I've never really asked for that. I literally just found myself continuing to pray and ask for Jesus and my angels and for light and love to help clear this energy from my lifeline so that it would be cleared from future lineages. And one of the helpers at Rhythmia actually sat with me while I was doing this purge and prayed. And as he was praying, he put his hand on my head and said, "God bless you." And as he did that, the demon, I think I got him out in one full purge. After that purge, I went back to the mattress. And then all I kept seeing over and over and over and over again in my mind was how we are in this biblical paradigm. Not literally. The Bible is the greatest story ever told. It speaks of the human condition, how humanity is flawed in its birthright. That's why we're here. And humanity would rather set a rapist and murderer free than to see divinity. And it's a very Lord of the Flies type of tale where we see things as we are, not necessarily as they are. And we're still animals coming to understand our role in a celestial hierarchy. I know this probably sounds so wild, especially coming from me. But when you view it with an esoteric lens, and if you view it as the meta story, if you view it as the idea of divinity coming down to help save us, but we are so flawed that we can't even see that the Savior has arrived, that we'd rather crucify him on Skull Mountain in between two thieves. If you look at the meta tale of that, the two thieves being our two eyes that can see, and Christ being a consciousness that comes from the unseen. There's something so powerful about that. There's something so pure about that. Esoteric Christianity was something that I never thought would enter my life, but in looking at the Essenes and looking at the Cathars and looking at the Rosicrucians and looking at the Egyptians and looking at Buddhism and looking at Hinduism and looking at Judaism, all of the things that have been on my path and receiving the Tao, that night I found Christ as a consciousness that I would love nothing more than to work to attain, if it's even possible. What does that mean? What does that actually entail? To me, if you look at Christ as a consciousness, what is it? It's love. It's forgiveness. It's compassion. It's being able to love thy neighbor as thyself and to choose the high road. When we're met with moments of adversity, when we're met with moments of fear, we can't fight fear with more fear. And as Dr. Martin Luther King said, you can't fight hate with hate. You have to move fear with love. Love is the superlative state of being. It's a consciousness. It's the highest consciousness. It's the highest space of light. If you've seen Interstellar, which is such a beautiful film, and you think of the idea of love as something that transcends time and can move through time, and what moves us through time, Christ consciousness is love. And self-love is the most important thing that you can give yourself, because if you can't love yourself, you can't love anybody else. But loving yourself is the hardest thing of all. So yeah, when I came out of that Tuesday night, I have not been the same since. The rest of the trip was amazing. I had a really great time with my fellow travelers. I learned a lot. I experienced a lot. And I'm so overwhelmingly grateful for the opportunity to work through time in such a way, in this concentrated drop of nature that ayahuasca allows and provides. Talking about why shadow work is important. On the last day of ceremony was Yahe night. So there's a program at Rhythmia. It starts with a dose of medicine from the Santo Daime tradition. Then the second day, the day that I had this experience, was with their home brew by a shaman. Wednesday night is Healing Divine Feminine. Thursday night is Yahe night, which is the Colombian tradition. And by the time Thursday night came around, I actually, at the end of each ceremony, people have space to share. People have space to discuss their experiences and to ask questions and to just offer whatever wisdom they had received from the ride that they were on. And that Thursday, I found myself in a group, and it was like everybody's sharing these healed hearts and finding forgiveness and Divine Mother Ayahuasca and beautiful sharing. But I was still so conflicted by what happened on Tuesday. And when I shared how I was still feeling confused, the shaman offered me such a powerful piece of advice and perspective shift by saying that because I've done work with medicine a fair amount of times, perhaps now I have gotten to a place where I'm strong enough to see and fight my demons. And that's just another layer of healing. That's a testament to where I've come on the path. And that's how I choose to receive and accept this. It's very hard to look deep into the mirror and to see your darkness. But until you do, that darkness will linger and fester and manifest in ways that can be surprising and are continued lessons along the way. Until we look at and through and heal our trauma individually and collectively, that trauma will continue to manifest in how we act and react to things. Plunging deep into the darkness, plunging deep into chaos, plunging deep into the aspects of self that you don't want to look at because they make you uncomfortable, that's where real true healing comes from. That's how you can find your light. That's how you can truly be the quote unquote light worker, is doing the work in the shadow, seeing how darkness and light are inextricably linked, and that all of the masters and sages and wisdom keepers of the times have said this in many different ways, depending on their culture, language, time, tradition. When you see Buddha meditating under the tree, there's a vision of him in deep meditation and all of these demons trying to get to him, but they can't get to him because he is so deep in his awareness that he's impenetrable. Christ was crucified for speaking of divinity in a way that the world was not yet ready to receive. He was pinned up and hung up on the cross like a piece of meat and still said, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." Gandhi was executed for speaking truths that the world wasn't ready for. The world sometimes isn't ready for things that aren't in alignment with the consciousness of the collective, because the collective shadow still is being repressed and manifesting in ways that I think we're still not even completely in tune with and aware of. If you look at Trump as the collective manifestation of the shadow, which we'll actually talk about in a future episode with Gary Lockman, there's something to be said about that. What has Trump done in his shadow is shine a light on the crevices of consciousness that need to be excavated and understood racism, inequity, social injustice. Those are things that have existed even while Obama was in office, but we didn't see with as much of a microscope. And Trump is the person that put the microscope up to the shadow. Because of his shadow being so dark, our only option was to shine a light on where there needs to be change. Reconciling paradox, having non-dual consciousness for a dual reality, seeing all aspects of the spectrum, inviting your demons to tea, and coming to understand them helps you understand yourself. So I say this because after this trip, I arrived home and I felt a sense of lightness that I haven't felt in probably 10 years. I've felt a new connection to my heart, self, soul, the world, God, Jesus Christ, and all of the great keepers of the heart of wisdom. And how I got here is because I plunged into darkness, because I danced with chaos. And as Terence McKenna once said, jump into the abyss and find out it's a feather bed. That's what I've come to find. Become a feather heart by jumping into the abyss and looking at darkness and letting that darkness go and freeing it with love. Here I am today, talking of this. My laptop that was in Costa Rica is still wonky, but luckily I have a second one, and I'm going to be spending the next few weeks editing my backlog of content, talking about new and exciting things with you all, sharing more stories, more anecdotes, more Dharma talks, if you will, taking what I've learned and trying to articulate it in a useful way that you can apply on your path and find resonance in a friend that is still a forever student. And while I love to teach, there's no hierarchy here. There's no aboveness. There's no guru-ness. There's just a reflection in the cosmic mirror that hopefully can be a catalyst to cause you to connect to and explore the deeper layers of your consciousness, and to work through darkness so you can find light, to stay in light even when there's darkness. To be enlightened is to be in light, and human frailty will sometimes come to the forefront. We're not perfect, we're imperfect. That's why we're here. We're here on Earth School to work through the lessons of karma through our Dharma, like a living episode of Lost. I don't know if you guys remember that show, but that came through a lot in ceremony too. It's a powerful metaphor for the human condition. But yeah, sometimes we have to get lost to get found. And sometimes things have to go according to God as opposed to plan, because they reroute you in a new way that allows you to chart new territory and speak of unseen and be surprised. Because like our dear friend and spirit guide that we mentioned in the beginning of this tale, Mr. McJagger, once said, you can't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, you get what you need. And also, don't forget to have sympathy for the devil.